Nothing needs to change for this moment to be complete. There is no movement required to arrive where you already are. The return is not an action, it is a recognition. This moment is already standing inside itself, before thought reaches outward, before attention gathers, before anything is named. There is a quiet here that has not been interrupted. It does not announce itself. It does not ask for awareness. It simply remains. You may notice that the body is already supported, not held in place, not adjusted or aligned, just supported, in the way ground supports weight, without instruction. Breath is already moving. Heartbeat is already steadying, in its own rhythm. None of this needs assistance. The return does not happen because something was missing. It happens because nothing ever left. Even when the mind wandered, even when attention scattered, even when effort appeared, the quiet was not displaced. It was never located in one place over another. It is not behind you. It is not ahead. It does not wait for readiness. It does not require silence to be present. Sound moves through it. Thought moves through it. Sensation moves through it, and it remains unchanged. This is not something to hold on to. Holding implies effort. Effort implies distance. Here, there is no distance. The return feels subtle because it is familiar. It does not arrive as an event. It does not feel dramatic. It feels ordinary in the deepest sense, as if something unnecessary has gently released, not pushed away, not corrected, simply no longer required. Nothing here is asking you to pay attention in a certain way. Awareness is already aware without focusing. Presence is already present without effort. The return does not sharpen, it softens, not into sleep, not into dullness, but into ease, a sense that nothing needs to be guarded against. Nothing needs to be managed. The quiet does not fix the moment. It reveals that the moment was never broken. Even now, nothing is being concluded. There is no threshold crossed. This is not the beginning of an experience. It is the recognition of what has been quietly ongoing. The return does not end. When this chapter ends, it does not belong to this space or this time. It continues because it does not depend on continuation. Stillness without demand, presence without effort, quiet return, already complete. Nothing has shifted since the last moment, not because nothing is happening, but because what matters does not depend on movement. Stillness does not announce itself. When it remains, it is not a pause between actions. It is not a gap in thought. It is the background that does not recede when activity appears. You may notice that experience continues. Sounds arrive. Sensations change. Thoughts form and dissolve. And yet, there is a sense that something essential has not followed them. Still here does not mean frozen. It means undisturbed, like a room that remains intact. As people pass through, the room does not become the footsteps. It does not absorb the conversation. It holds without collecting. Presence does not need to stay alert to remain present. Awareness does not need to watch itself to remain aware. This is not a fragile stillness. It does not break when attention drifts. It does not disappear when the mind becomes active. It remains because it is not produced by effort. Still here is not something you keep. Keeping implies vigilance. Vigilance implies risk. Here, there is no risk. Nothing essential can be lost because nothing essential was ever held in place. The body continues to exist Inside this stillness, weight settles naturally. Breath moves without being followed. The quiet does not interfere with function. It allows function to happen without commentary. This is why it feels spacious. Not because space was created, but because nothing is pressing inward. The sense of needing to respond, to adjust, to refine, loosens without being addressed. Still here does not argue with urgency. It does not push it away. Urgency simply loses its center. And without a center, it cannot organize experience. What remains is not emptiness. It is coherence, a sense that everything belongs, without needing to be placed. You may notice that nothing is being improved. This moment does not become better. And yet, it feels complete, not because something was added, but because nothing is missing. Still here does not require trust. It does not ask for belief. It does not ask you to stay. It stays without permission. This is not something to sustain. It sustains itself by not depending on maintenance. Even if attention moves elsewhere, even if sound grows louder, even if thought becomes dense, still here does not retreat. It does not follow attention. It remains where it always was, not behind experience, not beneath it, but as the quiet continuity in which experience appears. Still here is not a destination. It is the condition that never left. There is a sense of being held that does not tighten, not contained, not enclosed. Held without edges. It is not something applied to you. It is not a condition placed around experience. It is simply the way this moment supports itself. Like air supporting sound, like ground supporting weight, no pressure is required. Nothing is bracing against collapse. The body does not need to arrange itself to be held. It already is. Muscles do not need to release for support to be present. Support was here before tension was noticed. Held without demand means nothing is asking for adjustment. No posture is preferred. No sensation is corrected. The quiet does not reward relaxation, and it does not penalize movement. It holds both without preference. This is why there is a sense of safety that does not come from reassurance. Nothing here promises protection. Nothing here negotiates with fear. Fear may appear. Tension may move. And still, the holding does not withdraw. It does not depend on how the moment feels. It does not strengthen when things go well. It does not weaken when they do not. Held without demand is steady because it is not responsive, not indifferent, but not reactive, like a shoreline that allows waves without becoming the waves. Experience comes forward. Experience recedes. The holding does not follow. There is no instruction here to let go. Letting go implies effort, and effort implies something to release. Here, nothing is being gripped. What relaxes does so naturally when it recognizes there is nothing to maintain. The sense of needing to manage quietly dissolves when it is no longer required. Held without demand does not require trust because nothing is being offered. It does not say everything will be fine. It does not say stay here. It simply remains as it is. The body may notice a subtle settling, not a dramatic release, more like a quiet permission that does not come from language, a permission that does not say what is allowed, only that nothing is being refused. This holding is not personal. It does not belong to you. It is not something you possess or lose. It is the condition in which possessing and losing appear. Held without demand is not something to return to, It has not gone anywhere. It is the unnoticed constant that allows returning to be recognized at all. Nothing here concludes. Nothing here resolves. The holding continues because it is not doing anything, and that is why it does not end. There is no gap in this moment that needs to be filled. Nothing here is incomplete. The sense that something should be added arises gently and fades on its own. It does not point to absence. It points to habit, a habit of searching that continues even when there is nothing to find. Nothing missing does not feel triumphant. It feels simple, like noticing that what you were about to reach for is already in your hand. The mind may still suggest that something more is needed, not urgently, almost casually, but that suggestion does not carry weight here. It does not organize experience. It passes without consequence. Nothing missing is not a belief. It does not argue against lack. It does not convince. It is felt as the absence of pressure to improve the moment. The body does not need to arrive somewhere else to feel complete. Completion is not a state. It is the natural condition of being unsupported by expectation. Nothing here is waiting for a future version of you. Nothing here is holding out for understanding. This moment is not a step towards something better. It is already standing without reference. You may notice that the quiet feels fuller, not because something was added, but because nothing is being withheld. There is no resistance to what is present, and without resistance, there is no sense of lack. Nothing missing does not deny desire. Desire may still arise. It simply does not define the moment. Desire moves. Like weather, the ground does not become the clouds. The absence of lack is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of struggle with movement. There is no requirement to accept this moment. Acceptance implies effort. Here, nothing is rejected in the first place. The moment does not need permission to be complete. It does not wait for agreement. Nothing missing is quiet because it does not announce success. It does not feel like achievement. It feels ordinary in a way that does not call attention to itself. This is why it is often overlooked. The mind is trained to notice improvement, resolution, change. Nothing missing offers none of these, and yet it holds everything without asking for recognition. Even the sense of doubt fits here. Doubt does not contradict completeness. It arises and is included. Nothing is excluded because nothing needs to be curated. Nothing missing is not a conclusion. It does not close experience. It leaves it open without requiring more. This moment does not ask to be different, and because of that, nothing is missing. Nothing about this quiet belongs only to this moment. It is not confined to a beginning or an end. Quiet continuity is not something that appears and disappears. It is what remains when moments change. Experience moves forward. Time passes. Attention shifts. And still, nothing essential is interrupted. The quiet does not restart with each new moment. It does not require renewal. It continues because it was never dependent on what appeared within it. You may notice that memory arises, images from earlier today, thoughts about later. They pass through without carrying the quiet with them. The quiet does not travel. It is already present wherever attention rests. Quiet continuity does not bind moments together. It allows them to arise independently. There is no thread being held, no effort connecting now to what came before. Continuity is not constructed. It is revealed when nothing is trying to hold experience together. This is why there is ease, even as things change. Change does not threaten what does not rely on stability. The quiet does not depend on consistency of feeling. It does not strengthen when experience is calm. It does not weaken when experience is unsettled. It remains as the unmeasured background that does not register fluctuation. Quiet continuity does not announce itself as permanence. It does not say, "This will last." It simply does not leave, not because it stays, but because it does not go. There is a sense that whatever happens next will happen within this, not held tightly, not contained, included. Even distraction does not interrupt continuity. Distraction moves attention. It does not move the quiet. This is not something to remember. Remembering implies forgetting. Nothing here can be forgotten because nothing is being held as an object. Quiet continuity is not awareness of awareness. It is not self-reference. It is the absence of needing reference at all. You may notice that effort has little relevance here. Effort may arise. It simply does not organize the moment. Nothing needs to be carried forward. From this chapter, nothing needs to be sustained. The quiet does not depend on what you do next. It will be present in motion as it is in stillness. It will be present in sound as it is in silence. Quiet continuity is not a state you remain in. It is the condition that remains. While states pass, there is no transition required, no marker between this moment and the next, only this quietly continuing, without effort, without interruption. There is no effort required to remain here. Abiding does not mean staying. It does not mean holding a position or maintaining a state. It is the natural condition of what does not move. When movement appears, abiding is not something you do. It is what is already happening. When nothing is interfering, experience continues to shift. Thoughts may rise and fall. Sensations change their shape. And yet, there is a sense of not leaving. Not because you decided to remain, but because there is nowhere else to go. Abiding does not resist change. It does not attempt to stabilize what is unstable. It allows movement without following it. The mind may look for a reference point, something fixed, something reliable. Abiding does not offer an object. It does not provide a point to stand on. It is the absence of needing one. There is no vigilance here. Nothing is watching for drift. Nothing is checking alignment. Abiding does not require attention to be narrow. Attention may widen or contract. The abiding remains unchanged. This is not a fragile presence that must be protected. It does not collapse when forgotten. Forgetting does not move it. Remembering does not strengthen it. Abiding is not an experience you return to. It is the unnoticed, constant that allows returning to be recognized. There is no need to define what this is. Definition creates edges. Here, there are none. Abiding is felt as a quiet sameness across different moments, different conditions, the same underlying ease. Not because everything feels pleasant, but because nothing is being resisted. Resistance organizes effort. Without resistance, effort loses relevance. Abiding does not require trust. It does not ask you to believe this will remain. It remains without agreement. Even the impulse to move on belongs here. Nothing needs to be completed before the moment can rest. Completion implies a task. Here, there is no task. Abiding is not deepening. Depth implies direction. There is no direction when nothing is being approached. The sense of being here does not grow stronger. It becomes less noticeable because it is no longer contrasted with effort. Abiding is quiet because it does not differentiate itself from what is happening. It does not stand apart. It is not separate. It is the simple fact of being without reference. Nothing here prepares you for what comes next. Nothing needs to be carried forward. Abiding is already complete without continuation, and because of that, it does not end. There is nothing further to arrive at. What is here does not progress. It does not deepen. It does not resolve. It remains because it is not doing anything. Remain does not ask you to stay attentive. Attention may soften. It may wander. Nothing essential moves with it. Remain is not a posture. It is not a stance you adopt toward experience. It is the quiet fact that nothing is left when experience changes. There is no instruction here to continue. Continuation implies effort. Remain is effortless because it does not depend on continuation. The moment does not need to be held open. It is open without assistance. Nothing needs to be remembered from what has been said. Nothing needs to be integrated. Integration implies separation. Here, there is none. What remains does not belong to these words. Words pass. Remain does not follow them. It is not behind them. It is not underneath. It is simply unaffected. There is no boundary between this and what comes next. No edge to cross. The quiet does not signal closure. It does not indicate that something has concluded. It allows the moment to continue on its own terms. Remain does not fix experience into stillness. Movement may continue. Sound may rise. Thought may return. None of this disturbs what remains. The body continues to be supported. Breath continues to move naturally. Nothing is asked to stay as it is. Remain does not require agreement. It does not depend on recognition. Even the sense of being finished belongs here without changing anything. There is no sense of having reached a final point. Finality implies arrival. Remain is not an arrival. It is the absence of needing one. The quiet does not gather itself. At the end, it does not crescendo. It does not fade. It stays as it always was, unmarked, unmoved, unconcerned. Nothing follows this. Nothing needs to. The moment continues without reference, without commentary, without demand. Quiet. Return. Remain.